Howdy, I hope you have enjoyed your reading in chapter 10, because this is one of my favorite topics of the semester. As we talk about all the different strategies that companies can use to pursue their objectives, it's important to realize that sometimes decisions aren't made very well. And so it's important for us to understand who's in charge of businesses, who gets to make those decisions, and what can we do about it. So corporate governance is all about who's in charge of companies and how can we oversee those people who are in charge to make sure that the right decisions are made for the right stakeholders. So one of the major topics to consider here is the separation of ownership and managerial control. This is the basis of our modern corporations. Shareholders purchase stock, becoming residual claimants. Shareholders therefore reduce their risk or their investment risk by holding diversified portfolios. And professional managers that have the experience and industry knowledge are contracted to provide decision-making. Modern public corporate form leads to efficient specialization of tasks, risk-bearing by shareholders who could lose their investment, but certainly hope that their investment will grow, and then strategy development and decision-making by managers. So let's start a business and see how this can actually happen in practice. So you are the owner of this company. Let's name the company T-Bird Donuts. I like donuts, so let's go with that. But you don't have time to manage the company, so you need to hire a CEO. You hire somebody to run the company, to make strategic decisions, and to make sure that things happen according to what you want to do. So in this situation, who is the principal and who is the agent? Now, if we look here, we can see this diagram of an agency relationship. The shareholders or the owners are the principals. So therefore, you are the owner of T-Bird Donuts, and your CEO or your manager is the agent. This creates an agency relationship wherein a risk-bearing specialist pays compensation to a managerial decision-making specialist, who is the agent. Modern corporations are characterized by an agency relationship between owners and managers. An agency relationship exists when one party delegates decision-making responsibility to a second party for compensation. We see this in all sorts of professions and areas in life. We have real estate agents, we have travel agents who plan our vacations or could plan vacations for us. We have attorneys who may represent their principals in court. Even professional athletes hire agents to take care of the business side of coming up with their contracts and negotiating their contracts in their best interest. So the separation between ownership in a company and managerial control can create some problems. The principal and the agent may have different interests and goals. The agent may make decisions that result in pursuing goals that conflict with those of the principal. So the principal and the agent may have divergent interests and goals. Shareholders in large corporations lack direct control of those decisions that are being made. The agent makes decisions that at times result in the pursuit of goals that conflict with those of the principal. And it is difficult or expensive for the principal to verify that the agent has behaved appropriately. This is managerial opportunism, or the seeking of self-interest with guile. Managerial opportunism is an attitude or an inclination, or maybe a set of behavior, specific acts of self-interest. Managerial opportunism prevents the maximization of shareholder wealth, which is generally the primary goal of the owner or the principals. Product diversification is an example, among many, of an agency problem. So we've talked about the benefits of a diversification strategy, that it can reduce risk, and sometimes that risk reduction may be more in the best interest of the CEO than in the interest of the shareholders. So product diversification can create two benefits specifically for top-level managers that shareholders do not enjoy. So top-level managers can increase their compensation because generally executives of large firms make more money than executives of small firms. So product diversification usually increases the size of the firm, therefore increasing the compensation that the CEO receives. That's not in the best interest of the shareholder in the same way that it would be in the best interest of the CEO. Managerial employment risk is another area where we see benefits to the manager that differ from those of than the benefits to the shareholders. So a diversified firm is more likely to be stable or less likely to vary or to suffer poor performance that might lead to CEO dismissal. So the risk of job loss or the loss of their compensation and the loss of the CEO's reputation can be reduced by having a diversified portfolio within the company. But that does not necessarily translate to benefits to the shareholders, who can choose their level of diversification by simply investing in a diversified portfolio of different companies. An example of this might be free cash flow. So top-level managers may decide to invest extra cash in diversified business lines that benefit themselves through greater compensation or reduced employment risk. Shareholders may actually prefer to receive that cash so that they can control how that cash is invested. They can choose their own level of diversification rather than having the CEO diversify for them. So let's talk about managing T-Bird Donuts. So let's say that your CEO is making opportunistic decisions. Maybe they're getting into sandwiches, and you may not actually want that to happen. So what are you going to do if they absolutely insist and start to do this and diversify in ways that you don't want? Well, you're likely to fire your CEO and find someone else who will represent you and run the company the way that you want. So who's really in control at this point? Is it the owner? Is it you? Or is it the CEO that you've hired? Well, obviously it's you. You own the entire company. So principals do not know beforehand which agents will or will not act opportunistically. Thus, principals establish governance and control mechanisms to prevent managerial opportunism. So for question number one, what could an owner do to avoid hiring a CEO that might pursue their own interests at the expense of the owner?